relation to Chelsea, what are they doing at the moment in relation to bringing any additional players in? Because I know there's a lot of talk with profit and sustainability, but it's maybe the quietest January window I remember in recent times. It feels that all the big clubs are doing very little, but specifically with Chelsea, lack of experience in their team. Are they working on anything as far as you're aware, Ben?
They're working on stuff, but they've also spent a lot of money and they have to find the right targets. January is always an anomaly because it opens and it's such a fast window that everyone presumes it's going to be buy. But this is a window entirely framed towards the seller. And sometimes no good business is good business. And I think that we need to make that very clear. If your team is buying every single window, it exposes a shortcoming. And I think Liverpool fans understand that now. And if they're quiet in this window because they've done their midfield revamp and they're top, nobody really is too concerned, for example, that Liverpool maybe need another centre-back and they might not get one in this window. They might have to wait until the summer. I think with Chelsea, there's an expectation of look at the league position. They need to fix it by buying. And I think within the recruitment team, they're thinking more that they're halfway through a 4-window plan. January's the 3rd window, the summer's the 4th window. So you don't want to move for the sake of it now if strategically the better names, the more significant long-term names are not available until summer. And that's why I think that Chelsea's number one priority is to find an elite level striker. And that will be summer. And that might be Victor Osimhen. They'll be in the race for that kind of target without doubt. But there's not much that can be done in January regarding him. Same for Ivan Toney. The expectation is that he'll stay at Brentford and then might go in the summer, but could also leave as a free agent in 2025 if a new contract is not agreed. And it's tough for Brentford there because the player wants about 200,000 a week and Brentford can't really offer that. And they don't know what league they're going to be in yet anyway next season. It's Tony's goals that are hopefully going to keep them clear of the relegation zone. So Chelsea see all of this and they understand that there's just not that many names available that are elite, that are proven, that can be dropped straight in. And if you can't buy better than what you've got, there's really no point. So this is probably leading to a lot of internal debate and quietness within the market. And in the last 2 weeks, Chelsea will sort of have to pull the trigger. So I would still expect them to seriously consider another source of goals because Nicholas Jackson's away at AFCON and Amanda Broja has some genuine interest by Wolves, although Chelsea sources downplay whether anything can happen in this window. It will only happen if they bring someone in first. And Christopher Nkunku has unfortunately had another injury setback. Had he not done so, Chelsea would have let him play 4 or 5 games in the build-up to the window, in the first week of the window, seen whether that made the difference, and it would have informed their decision. Now they have to make a decision without really seeing Nkunku, and as a consequence, it makes everything a lot harder. And again, it adds a little bit more time. So I don't think it's that Chelsea are not moving. I think it's Chelsea have to be able to bring in someone that actually improves the squad. And if they can't, then they won't buy at all. The other thing is that Chelsea have focused on outgoings. We've seen, obviously, Ian Maatsen go off to Dortmund on loan. Trevor Chalobah is a player that Chelsea would like to sell. And ideally, I'm told, because the Bayern move isn't a possibility that he wanted last summer, he would like to stay in the Premier League. And that can create a bit of income and give you a little bit of movement in the latter part of the window. The Conor Gallagher situation might be one of the stories of the window. Chelsea are not actively listing Gallagher, but for the right offer, they'll consider something. And then they also might have some funds to move in the market too. So it's not that Chelsea are not doing anything. It's just that you can't be reckless. And a success of a window is not just buying, it's buying the right name. And if you've got your squad in the right shape, you might not always need to even buy in a January window. And the example I sort of give is look at left back for Chelsea. And there's probably some mistakes here that would be acknowledged by the Chelsea ownership. You got Levi Colwill playing at left back, a very unpopular decision amongst the fan base. And when I was in America and I interviewed Pochettino, he told me Colwill was one of the best centre backs in England, but he's playing left back. So that might be a stopgap, or it might be Pochettino as an inspired tactician, knowing something that certainly I don't see and converting him to left back. Then you look at the other left back options and you've got Marc Cucurella, who they briefly tried to loan to Manchester United, but it wasn't possible. And then Cucurella ended up moving to right back and covering Reece James for a bit and doing quite well. You had Lewis Hall, who signed a new 6-year deal and then subsequently moved to Newcastle. And you got Maatsen, who in pre-season looked quite good in a more advanced position, but obviously is a left back and again, didn't get any game time at Chelsea. So if you decide, which is logical, that Colwell's eventually going to be centre-back, or you decide that because Maatsen's gone to Dortmund, you need a left-back in this market, and that is a possibility for Chelsea that they move for a full-back or a left-back in this market, they've got to be better than Maatsen. They've got to be better than Lewis Hall. They've got to allow Levi Colwill to go to centre-back, or they're only covering for Levi Colwill. And the player maybe won't want to move if they feel they're only going to be deputising Colwill. And then what about Ben Chilwell as well? So I think that is a good illustration of pick your name in the market if you think Chelsea should have moved for a left-back. And tell me, is that left-back going to be better than Lewis Hall, better than Ian Maatsen, better than Ben Chilwell, and better than Levi Colwill? And if they're not, then why did they let Lewis Hall go? Why did they loan out Maatsen? Why are they not using Colwill as centre-back? And why are they not trying the now fit Ben Chilwell at left-back? So it's like any new name needs to fit into that narrative and dynamic, or you've just bought somebody and everyone's going to be quite underwhelmed by it. And I think the Chelsea recruitment team will find the right names or they won't sign at all.
And that's the right way to go. You can't just sign for the sake of signing. It has to be someone and especially Chelsea, there's elements of what they're doing that I think are right. But I look at the lack of experience in that team, and that's the biggest issue. That is literally it for me. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on in terms of them having to buy, the right individual. DJ here, one of our long-standing Chelsea members, has said, Terry, can you please ask Ben, is there any truth to the Colwill to Liverpool links, which I've seen online, and obviously Chelsea fans are a little concerned that he could go. Could you see Liverpool coming back in for him?
Yeah, I wrote something on this last week and also over the summer. Absolutely, he's on Liverpool's radar. It's irrelevant because Chelsea see Colwill as part of their leadership team. He's captained the team this season. Chelsea's stance is not for sale, but also Chelsea's stance is we wouldn't even put a price on it. So we're seeing a lot of reports about 70, 80, 90, 100 million, whatever the number is. Chelsea are not putting a number on it. It's a blanket automatic rejection. But Liverpool know that. So we're not talking about this window and we're not probably talking about the summer. But the reason why he's on Liverpool's radar is because they've had this long-standing interest. They knew Liverpool from his time at Huddersfield, that Levi Colwill was an elite centre-back, and they've been tracking him ever since. So it's just about timing at this stage, and it's about exploiting the Chelsea narrative. Because if we get to the summer period and Colwill turns around to Pochettino and says, wait a minute, when I signed this new deal and chose not to consider Brighton as well at the time, you said to me in that one-on-one, this is Colwill to Pochettino, that I'm going to play centre-back. And then in pre-season, he played centre-back. And then the season starts and he's been predominantly left-back. Now, if that rumbles on and is not temporary and Colwill doesn't like being converted to left-back, so that's the key point. Is this a stopgap?
Yes.
Or is this a long-term thing? If it rumbles on and Colwill doesn't like that, then of course, Liverpool will come along and say, come and join us as centre-back in your best position. And I think that if Colwill was to miss out on the Euro squad because Southgate feels like he's not played the season at centre-back, then he might start to wonder whether the same pathways promised in the summer have actually been fulfilled. And he might start to wonder whether Chelsea are going to get him any European football in the next season or two. And that's when you start chipping away. So I sort of sense this might be one that is not feasible in 2024, unless the player in the summer was to really express an unhappiness. I think that it might be one more for 2025. But there's no doubt whatsoever that if Liverpool could get Colwill today, tomorrow, in the summer, next year, they would proceed as long as the terms were right for them, because they absolutely think the player is a fit. And they are positive that is at centre-back, not left-back, like I think many Chelsea fans. And the last point to make on the situation regarding Levi Colwill is that when he played in the under-21 Euros for England and won that tournament and was outstanding, he was told after that tournament by Gareth Southgate that if he had a good season with Chelsea not only was he in the mix for selection, but he was potentially in the mix for a starting spot. And at that point, obviously, Maguire's form was not brilliant.
Yes.
So it's sort of a double whammy for Colwill in many ways, because he starts the season probably thinking he's got a real chance the Euros with England and getting some minutes. And then halfway through the season, he's a left back and Maguire's had really good form. So there's the sort of double blow. And I still hope that Colwill goes in some capacity. And I think he still stands a very realistic chance. But obviously, he's not in his favoured position. And therefore, he's young enough to maybe be patient and think, I'll make a Euros one day, I'll make a World Cup. He's very much in the mix for 2026. Mm-hmm. But, you know, from Liverpool's point of view, they can't just make an offer for the sake of making an offer. You're wasting your window, you're wasting your time, because at this stage, Chelsea would just laugh that off. Chelsea would just auto-reject it. And I think even Colwill will give Chelsea far more time before he considers a move away. So it's one for Liverpool, which they always do, to work on in the long run, but he is absolutely still on their radar.
Yeah, as you say, I agree. I think it's one of those things. Right now, I wouldn't worry about it if I was a Chelsea fan, but if that prolonged playing at left back situation happens, the player becomes disgruntled, then yes, it's one to certainly look out for. Before we move on to a bit of Everton, a bit of Arsenal, a bit of Man United, because I know there's a bit of interlink in that, and I want to get your view.